Okay, welcome everybody. It's 3 o'clock, so we want to get started and keep respect of everybody's time. This is Scott Cummings with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and Faith Peppers and I will be leading this session. Going to start off with Faith and talk a little bit about impact statements and what we're doing, and then we'll spend some time walking through the new website and new database. So Faith, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We hope that by the time we finish our session today, you will have a little bit better understanding of how everything within the new system is going to work, whether you are an inputter or a reviewer, and how the two systems kind of work together, and what we're looking for so that we end up with a higher quality impacts that are in the impact system to represent land-grant universities. So let's talk a little bit about the database. So the National Impact Database is an input data site that requires a login to access, and it houses the impact statements from across the land-grant university system. It includes research and extension impacts, and it gives the data to tell our land-grant university national story. And that database is focused on 6 priority issue areas that are identified by the Board on Agriculture Assembly, and they are updated periodically. So moving forward, these priority areas may change, but for the time being, there are 6 priority areas that we will show you when we get into the system. The second site is landgrantimpacts.org, and that is the public portal that pushes the information from the database out to the public. It's a searchable public portal. It tells our national story through online stories, fact sheets, photos, and includes downloadable PDFs that you can download and use in your efforts. And we'll talk about those a little more later too. But it shows our national impact on those critical issues facing the nation to the public. And it's marketed to media and decision makers and other influential groups through a variety of marketing programs. So both of those are intended to be tools that help us communicate not only our own institution, but how we support that national agenda and what we are doing as a complete system to help move those critical issues along. And they are tools that should help us do our jobs more efficiently, not create more work for us, and help us to educate Congress and media and other influential groups. But they should not duplicate the work that we're already doing, but should help us be able to enhance that work that we're already doing. So if you're creating a report for your local congressional delegation on what you're doing, let's say on water quality or water protection, there are fact sheets and stories within the landgrantimpacts.org site that you can go and download. So you can say, this is what we're doing here in at our institution, this is what we're doing for our state, and this is what we are doing along with other land-grant universities across the country in a national effort to improve this issue. So let's talk a little bit about what is impact and how do you show it? Because this is, over the last few years that we've been working in this system, this seems to be a really inconsistent area. Different people have different ideas of what impact is. And so we're trying to help you today in this training to understand for this particular product, what is it that we are looking for that institutes impact. So impact reporting it's a lot of work, but it helps us prove our value. It helps prove our effectiveness at solving critical problems and addressing critical issues. It creates a lot of visibility for the work that we do. It's also a good way for us to be able to be accountable to those people who provide us funding. It's a way for us to tell them, you gave us this funding and here's what we did to serve the people with that money. It solidifies our position as experts in this field, and to show that we are still cutting edge institutions that are solving the grand problems of tomorrow. And it's a database of success. It's a quick way that people can go and take a snapshot view of what we're doing across the country to make a difference. So what's in a good impact statement? A good impact statement is reportable, quantifiable difference or potential difference a program or research project makes. We understand that some projects that really belong in the impact system are not to the point that they can show the absolute difference they're making yet. Some, especially some of our basic research, will always be reporting potential difference. What is the potential for this research outcome to change the human condition or economic situation? So we don't expect everything to be quantified, but we need to know potentially what kind of difference can it make. Anecdotal evidence that can clearly be applied to demonstrate behavior attitude change. It's not all about numbers. Sometimes it's about telling the story of real people that can demonstrate the impact of our programs on people's lives. And from that, we can extrapolate that it also impacts other people in the same way. So that evidence can be anecdotal. It doesn't have to be hard numbers all the time. But it does need to show a measurable improvement to the problem or the situation that you're seeking to address. What an impact statement is not is a list of how many people showed up for a program, how many flyers or how many brochures of information you gave out, how many phone calls you answered. Those are all a part of it, but that's not the impact. That's activity. And knowledge gained is only the baseline. So we get a lot of pre-test and post-test. That shows how much people learned during your program. What we need to know is, what do they do with that new knowledge to create an improvement, excuse me, or a behavior change? That's the impact. So impacts show key change, whether it's scientific discovery, practice, or ability. If it's a change in the economic value or efficiency in how we do things, if it's a improvement in environmental quality, social well-being, health and well-being of humans, those are all things that we look for those key changes that show true impact. But more than anything else, impact should answer the question, so what? This was the problem, this was what I did, this was what the outcome was, and then so what? What difference does that make on a broader perspective? And that's the most important part of what you're going to have in your impact statement. It goes beyond just the number of people reached or the research results, and really talks about the application of the work that you're doing. Who's using it? And is it creating an impact on people's lives, on their businesses, on communities, on science, on how we do things? And we have to remember that good impact writing must be audience focused. So you have to think about who is the end user of that information? Who is going to be the ultimate receptor of that information? Is it elected officials? Is it congressional staffers? Funding agencies out there like NIH or NSF who we count on to know who we are and what we're doing so that we can continue to get grants from them? Is it donors who can give us funding to support our programs, or other influential groups within our community? And don't forget about the media, because they are also an important part of this puzzle. They can take the information that we have here, the stories that live in this database, and help us spread that word to a much broader audience. So always remember that your audience is very busy, They're very non-technical. They don't know nearly as much about what we do as we do. and they want it in terms that are not technical so that it's easier for them to digest and understand. And we also have to remember that they are also influenced by a lot of different groups. So what's going to make them pay attention to our information as opposed to the 14 other groups who put information in front of them that day? So what they're looking for is quick information that's easy to read. And we have to remember that, because a lot of times what we find is people get too bogged down in the details. They want to tell somebody every intimate detail of their research project, and you can't get all of that in an impact statement. It's a place where people come to look for partners or contacts if they are scientists themselves working on a project. So are you including that kind of information that they're going to be able to find if they are working on a similar situation? Who would be a good partner for them to further that research? Also think about the audience. What do they care about? What do they need to know to make important decisions? And what are their hot button issues? What are the things that are going to get their attention and make them want to read that information? Furthermore, what are the things that they may be out there searching for information on, and you want to make sure that your information gets into their hands? So be choosy, because not every great project makes a great impact statement. You can do really terrific work, but it's not really the impact statement that is going to fit into this database. And not every great impact statement fits into the National Impact Database. And the reason is we are looking at such a narrow scope in some ways of those 6 priority issues. However, if you look at those 6 priority issues and you are doing work that fits nowhere within the scope of those 6 priority issues, think about what you're doing, because they're pretty broad and they cover the greatest spectrum of what we do as a system. And write about what makes a decision maker want to approve funding for the work that we do. Post impact statements that are aligned tightly with those priority focus areas. And so the kind of the basic format that we look for in the impact statements, and Scott will show you the actual entry form in just a few minutes that will help you get a really good feel for what we're looking for here. But there are 3 basic parts we're looking for. The situation, and that should tell in just a couple of sentences what is the problem that you are solving. There's the response. What did you do to solve that problem? And the last part is the result or the impact. What happened and what difference did it make? You should spend the majority of your words, the majority of your space in this impact statement talking about the impact. You want to be very succinct in explaining the situation. Don't tell us every single move you made in the response, but basically how you went about addressing this problem, and spend most of your words talking about the impact, because that's what we're trying to show people in this system. So some common mistakes that we're seeing as we're editing and going through these impact statements every year is that there's too much information. It gets too bogged down in the step-by-step, play-by-play of the response, and very little information on the results or the impact. So don't give us so much information. If we want to replicate your program, we've got contact information there that we can call you up and say, hey, can you send me some more details on this? So don't try to put every step-by-step in there. It's not a place where you're being held accountable for every hour of your day. We're looking for the impact of your overall program. Sometimes they are way too general or they're way too narrow. We'll be reading along in an impact statement and you realize that it's just too broad, or it's so narrow that it just falls off a cliff. So think about how do you find the middle of the road there. And also when they are just totally laced with jargon, even being in this system for 26 years, there are times I read jargon and especially acronyms that I don't even know what they mean. So if I don't know what they mean, somebody coming in from the public, our information here is certainly not going to know what it means. So be careful with the jargon. Use words that make sense to people. we use a lot of very strange words in our system that to the outside world don't mean the same things that they mean to us. I will give you an example. I have had many people tell me they have no idea what financial literacy is. They think that means you're going to teach them how to read their bank statement or their credit card statement. They associate literacy with reading. And so when what you're really talking about is financial planning, financial responsibility, financial or economics training, call things what they are and don't use jargon that's going to leave people feeling flat because they don't really connect with what you're talking about. We have a lot of statements that come into the system that stop short at the outputs or the outcomes and don't go all the way to the impact. So it's great that you did this work and this is what came out of it, but then we need to know what difference that made, what change that made. So if there's no impact, that's a problem. But the opposite problem of that is people claim way too much credit for making monumental change when really what they made was incremental change. So make sure that the claim you are making in your impact can actually be backed up by the data and the work you did in your project. So we wanted to give you just kind of a linear look at what happens when impacts are put into the system. So typically, our institutions are gathering impacts reports from faculty. They should be edited locally and approved before they are put into the impact database. And now with this new system, there is an extra step in there that hasn't been there before, and we've instituted a peer review process in an effort to try to help us improve the quality of every single impact statement that's in this system. If you go and look in the old system, you will see some impact statements there that maybe really don't represent the best work of your institution. And we want to make sure that moving forward, we have really the best work from the whole system represented in here. So we've put in this peer review process. So once the inputters put the statements that's already been edited and approved locally into the system, it will then go through a peer review process that Scott will demonstrate for you in just a second. Once the review is complete and it has been approved, it will be posted to the website. And once it goes to a website, it's not just a black hole of nothingness where your impact statements sit. We actually do things with those. So at least once a year, there's a materials development team, a content team that consists of 2 communicators from every region within the system. We get together for 48 hours. And in that time period, we produce about 40 publications out of this system, including fact sheets, stories that will now be posted on the new and improved website. And all of these are available not only to view on the website, but you can download and use in the work that you're doing. So we're pushing this information out all the time. Scott will show you a new feature that we're adding that helps us create better social media. That if you're not following Ag is America on Twitter, Facebook, and on their website, you should be, because that's where we're pushing out most of the social media part of the database. So Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you if you will test drive them through the new system.
I'm going to ask you to stop your share.
Okay.
And let me start up. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Faith, give me that thumbs up. Okay, well, this is the, as Faith said, there's 2 sites. This is the public-facing site, which will be landgrantimpacts.org. This will be where the public goes, and this will also be where you go to log into the database site. So just a quick look. We have an about section, a subtitle of the team, areas of impact. Once we start getting impacts in, this search impact page will come up, but this will have a link to a search page that will come available. some newly added sections on extension research and teaching with all of our institutions listed. We have removed the logos just because they take up so much room. So every institution is hyperlinked with their name and their state. A section that we will have called Writing Impact Statements that will provide tips. And there will be a blog section on here that we can use to share things that are going on. So the key thing for the public will be this search impacts area. These areas down here are also hyperlinked, and then a little bit more about who we are. And at the very bottom of every page, you'll see a enter the database. That is a link that will go directly to the login page of the new database. So no matter what page you're on, this enter the database link will be there, and that's currently how we do it today, is at the bottom of every page. So there will be some additional changes to this site. We'll be changing pictures. Faith mentioned the stories that were written by the team. Every section has impact summaries and also impact stories. These are the current ones that were written by the team about 4 weeks ago. So every section has those in it. So whether you go to areas of impact or hyperlink or through one of these areas, you can see those stories and those marketing pieces that have been done. There could be more things added to that as we go through. So let me stop share again. And then I'm going to bring up the database. And I clicked on the wrong site, excuse me. Oh, what is going on here? My share is not. Let me do something here, get rid of a page. See if this works any better. There we go. So I've already logged in. You'll actually come in just to a login page. And when you log into the database side, and I'm just checking again that you can see that. You never know what's actually showing on your screens. When you come in, you'll actually go to a login page, which you will use your email address that's been provided, and also a password. And I'll talk in a few minutes about how you'll know your password. So when you first come in, you'll see for your institution impact statements that you have. Now these are just for testing today. When you come into the system, when it launches on Monday, this will all be blank. So we're starting from a fresh set of data for 2019, and I'll talk in a few minutes about the old impact statements. So at the top, this is the page we're on, My Impacts. If you are a reviewer, you will have a tab that says To Review. If you are an institutional if you're the institutional admin, or if you're an editor, you'll have an institutional users tab. Excuse me, if you're an institutional admin, you'll have an institutional users tab, and I'll go through that. And then I'm logged in, so I have an administration tab. So let me kind of go through this page. So this page is very simple. The title of the impact statement, once you enter, the institution, which should be yours. Some of you may have two profiles. Some of you may have an extension and a research profile, depending on where you're from. There's a status here. So if it says public, that means your impact statement has been approved and been pushed to the landgrantimpacts.org website. If your impact statement says draft, that means you're working on it and you have not submitted. And then you could have one or two submitted options. One submitted with nothing by it, which means it's gone to the reviewer, but nothing has happened. Or you might find a submitted with a little blue button with numbers. That indicates that it's in review and that the reviewer has sent you comments. And in this case, I've commented back. And so the number here is the number of comments that have happened between you and the reviewer. Now, I will tell you there's only one reviewer per statement. If you're an editor or an institutional admin, which is also an editor, you will not know who your reviewer is. So the reviewers are blind to you. They clearly have an idea, obviously, what institution you're from because they're reviewing, but you will not know who they are. The last section is you'll have the opportunity to, if you just want to look at your impact statements, or if an impact statement has been submitted and you want to retract it, you can actually either edit or retract, and you won't have this archive statement button. That's something we have on our end if we are asked to pull an impact statement by you, and it won't be by a reviewer, it has to be by you. We can easily pull that statement. Up here in the upper right-hand corner is your ability to add a statement. So look, and this looks, if you have a multiple profile like I do here, you pick, are you adding a research statement or an extension? I'm going to go ahead and pick extension. If you only have one, that won't show. So the screens for entry are, for the most part, exactly what they were before. A title, your relevance or situation, your response, and your results. And I was asked on Tuesday when we do this, think of this as 1,000 characters. Think of response as 1,000 characters and results of about 2,000 characters. We don't have a hard lock on that, but if you do that, that makes an impact statement about 1 page, which is what ideally is what you want. Faith mentioned the program areas. So those 6 program areas are ag systems, energy and bioproducts, environmental stewardship, food security, nutrition and health, and youth, families, and communities. So you can tell there's probably a place to put most things. If you pick an impact statement, you can actually tag it with a more specific, let's say this one was on climate change and sustainability. You can tag it. I can pull those tags off just by clicking on them. And then if you want a secondary statement, you can add a secondary statement. In the upper right-hand corner is your primary and secondary funding sources. Because this is both extension and research, this is a pretty exhaustive, long list. If there's something that's not fitting here, you've got a couple of others that you can pick, a secondary source. If you are doing an impact statement for an urban county, the opportunity just to tag it as an urban impact statement. Statement year, which this is the year of entry, not necessarily the year of impact. And then this kind of section here, if you as the editor is the primary contact for this statement, simply clicking the box will fill this in. If somebody else, excuse me, is the point of contact, you can enter their name and their email address. This kind of goes both ways. It depends on how you want to focus and address your impacts. If you're doing an integrated impact with research or another institution, you can select that and actually pull from the entire list of all the institutions. And then Faith mentioned this is a place that if you want to write a short synopsis that could be used for a Twitter feed. We're working on an RSS feed that will come out of this, and it will use this statement synopsis here. So if you want to put a, I don't know if we have a 140 character limit or if we've up that like Twitter did, but I'll check on that. And then the last box is if you have, our statements are short, should be short and sweet, but if you want to send them to a web page that's got more information, you can actually put that web page in here as a resource link, and you can add more if you got more than one web page. So at the bottom, now you have three options. You can save and continue editing. So I will tell you, save early, save often. It's always a smart thing to do. I got a phone call this week in the old system from somebody that started entering and then left for a few hours and got timed out and closed, it wasn't good. So save early, save often. You can save and close and come back to it, or you can save and submit. Clicking this save and submit automatically puts it into the review process. Now you did notice, or you might have noticed over here, that if you for some reason need to retract a statement, you can. Just know that if you retract a statement, it's got to go back to the review process. I don't really see that happening a lot, but we've offered that as an option. So, and then once if you get a number of statements, you can search, or you can increase the number that are on a page from 10, which is the default, all the way to everything you've got. So before I move on to the next roles, are there any questions popping up in the chat that, Faith, we need to address?
I don't see any questions yet, but one thing that we do want to mention is if you can start to get in the habit of gathering photos for your impact statements, we will be adding a new feature in the input site where you can also attach a photograph to your impact statement. That helps us when we're doing stories to be able to have photos to go with those stories, but it also makes it so that we can use them in social media and in various ways that we need those. We have one question that says, what is the expected turnaround time for reviewing?
Okay, so let's talk about the review process, and I'll address that in the review process. So once a statement has been submitted for review, there are 30 reviewers that have been identified. We actually had more, but the agreement was we would have 6 reviewers, 5 per region, and 5 region and 30. So we have 30 reviewers identified. They will work in a rotation. So slot 1, each region has a slot 1. So all of the slot 1s, it will just go in that order, then go back to slot 2, all the way down to slot 30, and then it will start back at the top. So once a statement has been reviewed, an email notification will be sent to the reviewer, providing them that they have an impact statement for review. And let me go to that review page. They will see a screen that looks something like this. Well, not something, it does look like this. So it has the impact statement, the institution it came from, and who the reviewer is. Now, only the reviewers will see the screen. We have added since Tuesday the original submit date and the date of last activity. This will provide us, the team, with a way to monitor how things are happening. Right now we have it set that if a review is not opened and looked at within the first 3 days, then this line turns yellow for me. So as I'm monitoring, I can look at it. If the review hasn't started in the first 7 to 10 days, it will turn red, and then that will allow us to notify a reviewer that they need to get on the review, or we need to reassign for some reason. So Alda, the question is, what's the turnaround? We're hoping that the turnaround will be within 1 week, or sooner, really, and that we can keep an eye on what's happening by the date submitted and the date of last activity. So in this case right here, this very first one, this has been submitted, but it's not been looked at. Down here, the reviewer has a button that says, in this case, the reviewer's returned one for whatever reason. But let's go in and look at this one right here, the one that was submitted by and with 2. So this is a one that's already been entered. If you notice at the top, there's a comments with an accordion. So the reviewer, and I would hope that you get more information than this. This is a test case that I put in. The reviewer read this statement and sent a note back to the editor, which was me, that said, this needs more data to support being an impact statement. That was 2 days ago. When I got this back, and when the reviewer types in this box and submits their response, the institutional editor will get an email saying you have a impact statement with comments from the reviewer. I don't know the exact language, but you'll get a note back that says you've got something to go in and check. I'll show you in a second where you can add your stuff. But at the very bottom is where the reviewer can either suggest improvement, or if they hit publish, that goes public. So in this case, the reviewer wrote this statement. I wrote, don't know what you mean, or I've added more data. Something came back to the reviewer. I can collapse that. Now let me go back over to the impact side. And the same comments are here. And there's an icon here. The little notepad Post-it notes are the reviewer's comments, and the icon with the person in it are your comments. So if I type back, great, I don't need to be in all caps, great feedback, and I submit that and go back over to the reviewer, the reviewer has 7 seconds ago, great feedback. And now, because I submitted a response back to the reviewer is going to get another email notification that the editor. So even though we don't like to be bombarded by emails, we've put notifications in so people know when something's happening both directions. So that's in place. Again, I could now, as the editor, go down here and publish. And when I go back to my impact statements, I now have 2 that are public. So the comments won't show on the public side. It just is a record of how many comments were done during the review process. You will also get a note when a impact statement has been approved. So fingers crossed, the best note you can get is you submit a statement and boom, you get a note back and say, it's public, it's approved. The goal is not to be punitive or punished. The goal is to have the best impact statements on the public site we can have. And honestly, our goal is that everything that's submitted goes public. So the more, the better. We just need to make sure we have the best statements out there. We've also will have built in if a reviewer gets one from their own institution, it's random. It's who sends it in and what person's in the next slot, that will have a spot that they can pass on it to somebody else. Or if a reviewer is going out of town, they can, say they're going to be out. It's real easy for us to add or remove a reviewer. If a reviewer just can't get to things, we'll put somebody else in that slot. We'll be monitoring that. We got a question about metrics. Will there be a review of site analytics? The answer to that is yes, we will be looking at that. And the other way we'll know the database hopefully is meeting our needs is Ag is America is going in and taking things and tweeting them out, and NIFA's using it because they use it. We have representatives on the committee from NIFA, and hopefully we'll know that way. Let me hit one other area. Every institution also has 2 institutional admins, and I will be sending emails to each of the groups based on your level, so you'll know, reviewers know who they are, institutional admins will know who they are, and then we'll send a general note out to editors and viewers. But the institutional admins have a little bit of a capability in this system that they haven't had before. And you normally won't have to pull up your institution, but since I have everybody's. So what the institutional admins have the ability to do is add editors, add viewers. So basically they've got kind of they have the ability to manage who's in the system for their institution. Now, normally this would be 5. We have a test case in here. In some cases, your directors have already sent us who the admins are and who the editors are, and we've already populated those. But let's say that I needed to replace Tom Payne as a editor, or in this case as an admin. I can just simply click on the X. That will free this box up, and when I click on the X and come back, it's got a plus sign, and I can add a new institutional editor. So this gives you the ability to not have to send a note to me to manage who has access in your institution. In this system, there will only be 5 editors from each institution, so 5 on the extension side, 5 on the research side. They can cross over and have that dual profile, but you also have the ability to add a viewer, and that's done simply by putting in their name, their email address, first and last name, and in the case of it's your director, you can tag that person as a director, and they'll be down here in this list, and they then can log into the database and see things that may not be on the public side. So you will have more, institutional editors will have more control of their own institution than they currently do today. So we have Faith just listed that we have an oversight committee that receives reports. They share this with the dean and directors. We also share it with the regional EDs, but we've been talking about a newsletter or other ways to communicate things, and she says here we welcome your suggestions. So that is the database in essence. If you're an editor, you'll only see this. If you're just a reviewer, and I shouldn't say just, but if that's your only rights, you'll see this. If you're an institutional admin, you'll have impacts and the institutional users capability. Any questions before I exit out and just kind of talk a little bit about the launch? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a few minutes. Okay, so let's talk about the launch. Actually, after this phone call today, we're going to start the transition of moving the URLs and the DNS domains to the new site. On Monday morning, I hate doing stuff like this on Friday, so we're going to wait till Monday. On Monday morning, I will start sending out a series of emails to users of different access levels, and that email will be a short email that has a password reset link in it. Once you click on that password reset link and set your password, the site will be open for your use. We did not set one temporary password for everybody because we know there's a whole group that wouldn't change. And this way, that tells, we can get a look at who's jumped in. I'm going to start first with the reviewers so they can get into the system. Then we'll move to the institutional admins in the second wave. And then the third wave will be editors and viewers. So that will officially open the system for use. I would, ask for your patience. We've tested and tested and tested, but you never know what happens when it gets out into the lands. And this whole review process is new for us, so we're going to be again trying to monitor it and work with it. And feel free. You will have. Let me type this into the chat real quick. That's my email and phone number if you want to jot that down or take a picture of it with your phone. I encourage you, if you find a problem or if something's not working the way you think it should, let me know, because we will be on top of it next week to make sure things are going. Now, let me make mention of two other things. You will also have access. We are starting new in the database, but we are also going to have impact statements from 2017 and 2018 that will be searchable from the public site. So on that search impacts, it will be a toggle of you want to search current impacts or past impacts. And the reason we're doing that is they didn't go through any review process. So they're just going to be over on the other, over in a separate box. Impacts from 2012 to 2015 will be called legacy impacts, and they will be accessible by requesting data from me. We're not pulling those into the site because of how old they are, and we're going to keep them there, but we're not going to have access to them. So 2017 and 18, we're calling those archived. You'll have access to them. Before that are legacy. You'll have to contact our office to get those. And then the search page probably won't be up for a few days. Right now, there won't be anything to directly search. So we'll be popping that in sometime shortly after we launch. But it's, we don't want the public to go jump on a search page and not have anything there to look at. So we'll be hopefully get some stuff in, and we can then get that search page going. So any other questions or thoughts or concerns that people might have? And you can unmute and talk or chat, whatever you want to do. Faith, any other comments from you?
I don't think so. Thank you. Was there a question?
Yeah, this is Neela Fargardese from UC Cooperative Extension. Thank you for this overview. I guess my one question is, I got a notification that I'm a reviewer. Is there going to be any sort of kind of resources as a reviewer that, a checklist of what we should look for type of thing?
Yes, it may take us a couple days to get some of this stuff to you, but honestly, this is one of those things that, Faith went through the kind of basics. It's kind of, it's really kind of, does it meet the needs of what an impact statement is, and does it portray us in a positive way? those are kind of the key things. Impact statements are not cookie cutter. Every program is going to look a little different because they are different. So a few of the checklist things, and we'll make sure some of this stuff is available for you, but it's probably best not to put people's names in an impact statement. Use your words for something else. That point of contact can be used for that. That additional resource or pointing to a website can be used for that. Again, we don't want to be, this is not a Journal of Science or Journal of Nature publication review process. This is just trying to make sure that what we're putting out there is written pretty well and contains data that supports it being an impact statement. So we'll make sure you have some tip sheets, but don't treat anybody like they're going through a dissertation defense, I guess is another way to say it. So
it won't be too prescriptive, but we will have some general guidelines, like checking to make sure that the method matches the situation and that the impact is properly measured. Because that's one of the biggest issues is you will look at the impact and wonder, how did they come to that conclusion? So we'll be looking for those types of things. Is it properly measured, and is it properly reported? Is it overgeneralized? Those types of things. So we will give you a tip sheet and guidelines of what we're looking for to kind of keep things within a certain parameter, but we don't want it to be too extremely prescriptive. And we also don't want it to be too time consuming for the reviewers. But we've got to have this level of clearance because some of the statements coming into the system just are not up to par and reflect poorly on the institutions and the system.
So another comment I can make is, as I mentioned, we have 30 reviewers. We get about, over the past 4 or 5 years, we've averaged about 450 impact statements a year. So given that, a reviewer might get 12 to 15 in a year. So on average, one a month, a little more than one a month. Might you get 3 in 1 month and then go 3 months without seeing one? Absolutely. There's the only deadline, and it's a soft deadline that we kind of have with the system, is next year this November or so, when the reporting team is preparing to meet in January of 2020. We'll be saying, get your impact statements in, because the writing team's going to be working, but the system's open 24/7. Put them in as they happen, and as an institution, you can put as many in as good things you have. So if you've got 20 really great impact statements that fit and you want to put all 20 in, go for it. If you only have 5, that's okay. This is not a competition, and I'd be happy if we went from 450 to 600. So, in down the road, if we need to add 30 more reviewers, we'll do that. I mean, we'll figure that out. So,
one of the things that Brian Meyer points out, Brian is on our content committee. Often when we're going through the statements, we will find impact statements that are put into the wrong category. So that is one thing that we will be asking reviewers to look out for is it posted in the correct of the 6 category topics? Because we find a lot of times we'll be looking for a certain topic and we'll find good impact statements in there that won't turn up in a search because they're put into the wrong category. So that is one thing we'll ask you to look for is, does the impact statement match the identified category, or do you need to switch it to another category?
And that's something that as a reviewer you could suggest, please switch this to health and nutrition instead of food security. Any
Any
other?
other questions? I'm sorry,
That's okay.
Scott.
We're thinking the same.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one more question. Could we get a list, or maybe I should just email you directly, Scott, of who is assigned to what for our side of things? I think I think I was listed as impact editor, and then to be notified that I'm a reviewer. There's a different bit of language that I have, so I want to make sure that I know who on our team is who, institutional, whatever, reviewer,
Yeah.
that type of a thing.
Yes, if anybody, those that are institutional admins will see that when they log in on Monday. If not, just email me and I can do a quick screenshot and show you that. So
Okay, great.
I would hope to get back with you, fairly quickly once you email me. But today and tomorrow, I'll just tell you we're focused on getting everything moved over and ready to go. But I still could do that for you. But yes, you can contact me and we'll do that. A little bit of a change is there are some people that were in the old system that are not in this current system. We worked off what your directors and administrators gave us, and we'll deal with those things if they come up, or you might have to deal with some of them. And if we find out that we need more than 5 editors at an institution, that's a decision the committee could say, let's add 5 more. I mean, I think the committee's open to a lot. What we found in some cases in the old system is we had institutions that might have 30 people with editorial rights, and we didn't know if some of them even knew what impact statements were. So we're trying to get to a little bit of quality control. Have we done it right? We don't know yet. We'll find that out. So.
Any last questions? This will be posted online for your review if you need to go back and review it once it's time to start putting impacts into the system again. We will also be offering some other trainings as we move along and updates for you if that's necessary once we get this new system live. If you have questions, please feel free anytime to contact Scott or me, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered.
Let me ask one more thing before you leave. If you have not gone into the chat and listed your name and institution, please do so before you log off. And at this point, the training is concluded, and you can log off at your leisure, and we'll keep it live for 4 or 5 minutes to let people enter. And I'll answer this last question from Ann. What about impact statements have both research and extension? You can call that integrated statement, that box there, and just list the other institution. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Jesus, she didn't wait any time.